I'm Betty Fuller Woodman, and I moved to Cornish when I was a year before I went to first grade, and our land is a lot of the Cornish, a lot of the fair land now, and I lived here until I was 16, and I've come to the fair majority of the years, I guess, since.
I see. Did you go to school here?
Yes, I did.
What school did you go to? The
Unity Elementary School.
Oh, you didn't go to Unity?
Unity. Yeah, okay. Cornish.
You went to this building right up here?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I lived in Unity for so long now that feels like it's been forever.
Well, they have a lot in common.
Yeah,
they both had an old home day celebration. And what about you, sir?
Well, my name is Stanley Woodman, and I was born and brought up in Claremont. But I've been coming to the fair periodically, off and on, since I was a kid, probably 13 or 14 years old. And to see the fair has gone on these many years and has grown, and it's really amazing to see how well it's done. And hopefully it will continue for many, many more years. Lots of things I remember. The things with the animals is particularly nice. And a lot of the 4-H exhibits are just great. You know, when I
It seemed to
met
work
Betty
awfully fast,
in
but it
1972,
didn't work. It let us
little did I know that I actually knew her when she was a kid, because her parents had owned this land, and they had
That's
dairy
always
goats
fun.
at one time, and that was what they did here. So, you know, it was kind of like, oh, gee, this is wonderful. And so that's pretty much what I know
Oh, you're
about the
pulling
fair.
into the-
And how many years you've been coming here to the
Oh
fair?
my gosh, I don't know. Quite a few.
Quite a few years. And you all by yourself today?
All by myself and my dog.
And your dog. And does your dog come onto the grounds? They don't let him
no,
on?
No, she generally comes over, but not today. I didn't bring her today. She generally, because she's getting old now, she has to stay in the truck.
Yeah, it's getting hot. And
Yeah.
what is your name, sir?
Wayne Farrer.
Wayne Flower. I see.
Farrer. F-A-R-R-A-R.
Right. And do you have any relatives in this neck of the woods?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No.
So,
They have the Smiths over here, but both of them passed on. So
oh,
don't
I
have them
see.
anymore.
So you were friends with them? Or?
Yeah, great friends, yeah.
I
he was
see.
running the sawmill over here in Claremont.
Oh, I see, yeah. Well, so what do you remember most about?
I come
Okay.
mostly over to see the cattle because I used to be a farmer, so mostly I come over and look at the cattle
I see.
and the machinery.
So do you think that farming, small
farm-
farming is going to survive in this
No,
country?
I don't think it's going to. Every day they're going out.
I see. And what do you attribute that to? A lack of interest or no money
Well,
or?
the expense, and they aren't getting enough for the products they sell. That's the thing right there. Yeah.
I see. And do you think the government can do anything about this?
They could if they want to, but they aren't. They don't care about the farmers no more.
Yeah, and you think that they'll ever revive industries in this country? Some people.
I don't know. It looks kind of bad right now. I'm glad I lived my years. I tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad for the new ones coming along. I don't think there's a future for them.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay.
Taxes are gone up, and if you don't make money in farming, how are you going to pay your taxes?
You can't. That's what's hurting them. And the raises the taxes up so much more now that they can't afford to pay them. That's it is.
Well, hopefully
Okay, you're welcome.
we'll be able to survive a few more
Oh, I
years.
hope so,
Yeah.
too.
There's
All
Dr.
right,
Blair.
and- All right, so I owe you $2.
Yep.
And would you like a ticket? A program? Would you like a program?
Yeah.
Here, let me give you a program.
Yeah. How come they haven't put any signs up anywhere around where the fairs are? They always just put them beside the road so you turn here and there.
I'm not sure.
Not a
That's a good point, and I'll bring that up to the sign people.
Are you guys doing weekend passes?
We
I'm Hillary Lee Ward. I've lived in the Cornish Plainfield area all my life and I'm 20 years old, so about 20 years. I've been helping out the fair since I could walk, I'll say. My father always did little booths where you do baked potatoes and other stuff, and I've been always helping out the fair.
Well, wonderful. What is your name?
I'm Nick Sprague. I'm 17. I've been at the fair since I was born, and I've lived in Cornish since I was born, and my dad's been helping out the fair, and I've helped out since I was able to.
Okay, and what do you remember the most about these fairs? What made the biggest impression on you?
I like the horse pulling the most.
I see. And is that extremely popular, would you say, with spectators and people coming to the fair?
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Now, this isn't oxen pulling. There isn't any more of that, or what's the story on
There's
that?
horse pull and oxen pull.
There is. My grandfather's time, the ox pulling was considered I think the top one.
Yeah.
And more people came to see that, but of course things changed.
Hey, my name is Doug Hackett. I'm the police chief here in Cornish, New Hampshire. And every year we have this 3-day fair in town that brings in several thousand people. It's a quiet family fair. Lots of rides and 4-H activities and horse and ox pulling and timber competitions. And
Do you have a favorite event that you would like to see if you're not on duty and can watch it?
oh, the woodsman competition is always something I enjoy watching, and the new stage they have here is set up to have a lot of different entertainment, and every year it's always something good.
I see. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that woodsman fair, the axe throwing and that. Let me ask you this. Do you think that some of these skills are going to be enduring over the years, or are they pretty much going into oblivion?
Well, I think all of it has changed over the course of time I've been policing here. There used to be a lot more teams in the horse and ox pulling, and I think that with the family farms that are, dwindling in numbers in the New England area, certainly has changed it. But there seems to be some still die-hard families that continue on the tradition, and it still draws a large crowd of people who want to see the tradition.
Well, without getting into all the problems that are confronting farming and agriculture in this country and so forth, what do you think local people can do to keep these things thriving other than what they're trying to do on a daily basis?
I think just a continued support of them, continue to support the family farms, the farmers markets, buy local, all that sort of stuff. It helps to keep them where they are, and they all have very good values that they're passing down to people.
Deborah Casper, and it used to be Smead back when I went to Cornish Elementary School. Been here since 1971, attend the Cornish Fair every year. Usually just come one day out of the 3 days, and it's awesome. You have to go to Blow Me Down for the hamburgers, and then you've always got to get funnel cake or something, and the rides are awesome, and the cows are awesome, and just have a good time.
So do you think that fairs like this are going to continue on into this century, or are they going to dwindle and die?
I hope so, because I hope that they continue, because it's kind of a rite of passage to bring your child, bring your children to the Cornish Fair. It's an awesome thing. I mean, they get to see animals, they get to meet people that they haven't seen for years, and it's a fun time for the family.
Now, have you ever gone to Cornish Old Home Day?
I have not.
maybe you ought to go some year. I went for the first time this year, and then I decided to come down here. And some people claim that this is actually an old home day of sorts because people get to see different ones, and I got to see you, for example,
Right.
today.
Yep. You get to see
And,
people you haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, the other purpose I have is that I want to bring things down that are down here, like in Claremont, Unity, Cornish, Plainfield, whatever, and present them up in the upper valley so people up there can see there's a lot more to be seen down here than what they think when they just drive through.
Right.
And also, people need to know there's more to Cornish than just St. Gordon's Memorial. Which
Right.
a lot of
And the
tourists-
covered bridge. And,
Yeah, that type of thing.
Yep.
Cuts here in the two-man cross-cut competition.
My name's Marie Edwards, and I live 1 mile from the fairgrounds. And I got interested in the fair 4 years ago because I took over the breakfast booth feeding the 4-H kids. I come to work at 5 in the morning, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and start cooking for them in my booth on the other side of this booth.
I see.
And I drove a school bus for 35 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Here in Cornish, right?
Well, I drove Cornish and Brownsville and Windsor and Unity and Heartland. Most everywhere they needed a driver.
Well, the only driver I knew in Cornish, because he used to drive the bus that I sometimes rode on, was Kenneth Hunt. Lived in Cornish Flat in the brick house up there.
Okay, yeah.
Did you ever meet him, or was he
No.
alive? No, he probably passed away then.
Yep. I knew Andy Cure.
Yeah.
Did you know Andy?
I knew
drove
Myron
bus here.
Cure.
Yeah, I mean Myron.
Yeah.
He drove bus here.
Did he?
Yeah, for a good long
And
time.
the Cures have, I guess, still have a farm up there in Cornish Flat.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. And so does it. The Allen, Mr. Allen. He passed away. He was a firefighter.
Oh, was he?
And I think he was a chief of the
Could have
fire
been. I'm
department.
not sure. 'Cause-
Yeah, he passed away, and his daughter still runs the farm that they got.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. So you came up here, and so you got involved here in the fair, and
Yep.
you've been to every fair since you moved in, or?
Well, almost. I used to do the craft room up at the school. People bring the crafts up there. They used to have it in a room up there. And Mr. Stone, who used to be big here in the fair, he got me interested in I do crafts.
Oh, do you?
And I'm a seamstress. And I lost my 2 boys 19 days apart. Thanksgiving and Christmas, they died. So since '92, I raised money. I go to farmers market and Christmas bazaars. And last June, I gave $1,500 to 3 seniors at Stevens High School in Claremont.
Thank you very much.
They have to go to school for medical reasons. 2 of them one's going for nursing, one's going for physical therapy, and one's going for sports medicine.
I see. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that looking at what you're doing and the crafts that you are doing, do you think that people will continue to practice these things and maintain them, or will they end up just being a thing of the past and nobody?
Oh no, people will continue. I make quilts. I have a quilt up at the school. I got first prize.
Wow.
No, they'll keep doing it. The older people, and now the younger kids are getting more interested in it. You know, it's
Yeah.
nice to see all the cows and everything because
Yeah,
I
was
was
pretty
born and brought up
impressed
on a farm.
with
Yeah.
many of these.
We have an
children
awful lot of
here,
cows
and,
here.
and they're very serious about it. Too.
Oh,
and I
yes.
asked them some questions that would stump me, you know,
Yeah.
and they have the answers to.
You better believe it. Yeah, the true farmers here.
Yeah.
A lot of them are right off local too. Yeah.
Well, do you think that, given the economic situation in the United States and around the world, that small farms will survive in the?
It's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard.
Yep.
Yeah, most everybody I
Anything.
talk to seems to think that.
I'm on unemployment right now because the state of New Hampshire shut me down. I turned 70 and I couldn't pass the test. They told me I didn't know nothing about my bus. Well, I know more about my bus than they do. So,
Yeah, you know, that's one of the things that you find that sometimes the government creates regulations that prevent people from working or doing normal activities.
They sure do.
Yeah, and they usually get the notion that we're doing it for the public good or the public safety.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys that are advocating changing things, I mean drastically, cutting out everything, they already are well cushioned. They have enriched themselves.
Big bucks.
Yeah, and so the little guy, and
I agree with you.
The other thing is that sometimes people come into different towns and villages and states with grandiose ideas of spending a lot of money, and then for this, that, and the other thing, which may not be needed.
I know.
And then what happens? The property taxes go up, and a number of other things happen.
Yeah, I get no breaks on my taxes. I mean, I pay my taxes, and it's real hard too. So.
Yeah, and I often think that, well, if I didn't have to pay a large property tax, I could use that money for doing some things around the house or doing
I
some
can't
other
do anything because I'm all by myself. My husband passed away 3 years ago. He died of lung cancer.
Was he a smoker?
Yes, all his life.
I see. Now, were you around his secondhand smoke, or did you smoke, or what?
No, he never smoked around me, never smoked in my home or nothing. So.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
I have to go. I'm glad to talk to you, but
okay, well, thank you very much.
I gotta go clean my room and work with my friend.
Okay, let me just have you write your name down for me.
Okay, I can do that.
Sure, next year. This one will get greeted.
I see. So do you ever really get attached to the sheep and you hate to see them go, or?
Nope.
No, you just look them at it as another commodity.
Yeah.
I see. So you don't really have any feeling or sensitivity for the sheep? Well, you don't mistreat them or anything. But
no, we don't mistreat them, but...
You see them pretty much as something to be eaten.
Yeah.
I see. Well, you know, in some respects, people are like sheep. They're ready to be fleeced, shorn, and sometimes eaten. Because sheep notoriously follow the herd, right?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people do.
Yep.
So, if you had your choice, would you go back to olden times and herd sheep like they used to, and have a sheepdog, or would that life not appeal to you?
No, that'd be fun.
And so, when you when you get out of school, what do you plan on doing? Plan to stay with farming and agriculture and sheep?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Yeah. Well, it's early yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are your brother's sheep over there, and that's your sister's sheep I'm looking at now, I think.
Yep.
We're the Twin State Trail Busters out of Lebanon. We've been organized snowmobile club since 1969. Actually, Thelma and Sandy and John here are some of our founding members. We are members of the New Hampshire Snowmobile Association. Every year we average around 300 to 350 members in the Lebanon-Enfield area. And we do the Bloomin' Onions here to help raise money to pay our insurance and to help maintain our snowmobile trails. We average about 55 miles of trails in Lebanon-Enfield area on private property. So, I mean, we do this to help with landowners and maintain the land and keep the trails trimmed open and, you know, and erosion and whatever that happens with that, you know. So
that's it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of, I would say, concern and responsibility for what you're doing.
Oh yeah, we try to stop and see the landowners, you know, once or twice a year, see how they're doing, see if they need some help, you know, if we can, you know, offer some help to help them split the wood or whatever, you know, whatever we can do to help them. Of course, it's because without a mutual commitment between the landowners and the snowmobile club, the trail stops.
Yeah, because you see that a lot of people, especially when it comes to, let's say, national parks and other things, that are opposed to any snowmobiles or whatever going into the park. Yeah. So it sounds like you've got a wonderful program going on up there, and And I thank you very much for letting me know about it.
Yeah, it's all key to the relationships with the landowners, and the landowners are, you know, the lifeblood of the club, and letting us use their land is, you know, what it's all about. So it's you know, great to have a working relationship with them.
What do you call it, the contest here?
Yeah. Is this a video or is this a still picture?
Video, and I'll take a still picture too. And
Her name is Silver. So yes, it is.
yeah, because everybody seems to like this calf. What's the name of your calf?
Silver.
Silver. Why'd you choose that name?
My accident. She's the owner that I bought it from.
Oh, I see. So it's a pre-owned calf.
Her name is. How old is she? She's she was born in
Okay.
March. So 6 months old.
Well, thank you very much.
My name is Tracy LeBoy. I've been with 4-H for 11 years now, since my kids were small, and I absolutely love it. Great opportunity for kids and adults.
And do you see that these skills that the 4-H teaches and works with, do you think that they're going to continue through the 21st century?
Oh, definitely, definitely. We've had kids go on to all kinds of stuff, college and work experiences, and they always come back and tell us that what they learned in 4-H helped them.
So it's not really just a physical skill they're learning, but also some other life skills that are involved there. Like, I remember it was heart, health, mind, and what was the other one?
Heart, health, hands, and
home? Because I remember hearing that years ago. I never joined the 4-H, but there were a lot of people I know that did that. Now, how about small farms? Do you think they're going to survive?
I think so. I think so.
Do you think people will be more interested in growing smaller and diversified crops and foods and herbs and whatever else?
I think so. The people that I've talked to want to buy more local. So I think with the smaller farms coming in and more variety that they have, that they'll really survive and do well.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about are the imports from abroad, because a lot of these countries are developing just a cash crop of sorts and not diversifying, so they have food problems. So if their crops fail, then we would be in trouble if we depended on them, wouldn't you think?
I would think so, yes.
Yeah, so that's why we need to have local people doing the things that they're doing. Well, I thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Let's get up and dance. You know how to dance that?
Hi, hello, my name is Isaac McIntyre. I'm from Grantham, New Hampshire. My parents bought me this hot dog cart about a year and a half ago, and well, I've been steaming hot dogs ever since. It's a summer project, and whenever I can get to farmers markets and around town.
And this is the first time you've been to Cornish Fair, is it?
This is the first time I've been to the Cornish Fair. This is the first time they've had their flea market, so the first time that I've really been able to get in.
Have you thought about the farmers market in Cornish Flat? Or don't you go to many farmers markets?
I go to some farmers markets when I can, but some of them are kind of hard to get into, and some of them require quite a bit of money.
Oh.
I've never heard of the Cornish farmers market. It's a long haul to come up here.
Oh yeah, it would be. Yeah, that's right. Because there aren't any really direct roads to Grantham from here, are there?
No, there isn't really any. I mean, the most direct route is to go down up to Lebanon and down 89.
Is that right? You can't cut across through Lebanon and or
cut
West
across.
Plainfield, I
I
should
can
say.
cut across. It's just a really long, tedious journey.
Yeah, east-west highways are difficult here, or hard to do because you have to go so many byways and everything. I know in driving around. So you do this every summer, and you think there are a lot of regulations and things on what you're doing?
There is a lot of regulations when you take the time to look them up. I mean, I am approved by the state health inspection and things like that. But a lot of people, they don't realize that you have to do that, even for small businesses like this. I have a lot of restrictions from my size and not being a full-blown trailer. But so I'm all legal. I have all my paperwork with me all the time.
Yeah, because you have people that are going around inspecting, trying to find out this, raising all kinds of issues. And I've noticed that a lot of places, what you might call, used to be a neighborhood or a family enterprise, now is due to all kinds of restrictions. They can't do it anymore. Lemonade stands by small kids, they come under scrutiny by officials. And I think some of this has to do with the fact that the towns and villages don't have enough money and they want to impose fees. Shot of him. So the white horse is an Arabian. Okay, what's this horse in the front here?
This one right here?
Yeah.
So this horse is a Morgan.
A Morgan, and that's a famous breed developed in Vermont. And what's the basic story on that, if you can recall?
Basically, the story was that a school teacher in Vermont had bought a horse that was very young, and it was a very small horse, and many of the people in his area joked about the fact that his horse was so small it would never be worth anything. And he believed in this horse, so he continued to develop the horse. He used him for all his farm work and hauled logs with him, and there were a few competitions. The very small Morgan horse was able to outpull some of the larger horses, and there was apparently a race where, I don't know whether they were thoroughbreds, but there were some very fast horses that were brought into the area known to be, I have a lawn tractor behind me, excuse me.
Yeah, that's all right.
Known
a lot of yahoos
to be very fast, and he did a challenge race with one of these fast race horses and he beat him. So basically that horse, he was a stallion, became known as the Morgan horse, named after Justin Morgan, the owner. And that horse once they started breeding the horse, it passed on all of its characteristics to its offspring, which are very, very heavy shoulders, heavy neck, very strong, and have a lot of endurance.
Well, this horse doesn't look very small to me. He looks rather large.
So what has happened?
You guys know what I need, I don't have to tell you. Good wrist on this side, your side, water, t-shirts for sale, water. Can't read minds. Well, maybe. You good with that, John?
Yeah, at the wristband.
Ready, go!
Hi, I'm Sherry LeClaire. I live in Claremont, number 4-H leader from Sullivan County. I currently have 8 kids in my club, and I think Cornish Fair is a really great thing. We try to encourage the kids to show their exhibits of things they've made throughout the year so they can show other people what they've learned. And I actually have 2 of our kids are coming up tomorrow to do a make and take it. They're going to be teaching how to decorate a cupcake.
So where will that take place? In this building?
That will be in the school building, and we'll be down the hallway by the flower show.
In the school by the flower show.
Yep. This will table set up, and it will be theirs will be 2 to 4, but there's also another exhibit going on from 12 till 2, showing how to make caterpillar creations.
And in past fairs, have you had other projects or similar projects, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
we've done this. I've been a leader for 6 years, and we try to encourage kids to come up every year and put their own things in, because it's really prideful to come home with a ribbon show, whether it's first, second, or third place, but they all place something, they all receive a ribbon. They get something to show for it later on, and it teaches a lot. I mean, just not just responsibility to get it here, but also showing pride in what they've done and learned.
Well, one question I have, and I ask everybody about it, is do you think that the arts and crafts and the skills that are learned in 4-H and also at various agricultural fairs or whatever will endure through this century, or do you think they're fading out? What?
I think they definitely will endure, because the arts and crafts, it isn't just the craft that they're completing that's being used. A lot of times we're recycling items as well, but they're learning responsibility. They're learning how to put things together, to plan on a project and actually go and reach their goal as well. It isn't just the finished craft itself.
I see, yeah.
Yep.
And actually, in these skills, you're not in front of a computer screen all day or on a cell phone.
Exactly.
And you're actually learning to manipulate your fingers, and the fingers, of course, lead up to the brain. And then what's the other components of the 4-H? What does it actually mean?
Head, hands, heart, and health. And we actually have a whole big diagram of what each of these components mean, but pretty much it's like you use your head in all your projects that you're doing. Your hands you're using on everything that you're touching and creating. Your heart, you're actually doing something that isn't just for yourself, you're doing it for others as well, as like citizenship in your community. And it's obviously healthy. We do learn a lot of things about food too, which...
Well, the 4-H actually has branched out from being just a rural organization, and I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it a national organization?
It is, it's international actually.
International.
Yep.
So there are do you have international, let's say, camporees or workshops?
Our only thing I think pretty much
conferences?
that we do that's international is we have an International Foods Day, and we learn about the entire culture, not just the food, but each club is responsible to pick a country to learn about, do something from that country as far as a food project. We share it with all the other clubs. And this is in January every year they have this, and one of the other things we do is go up on the stage after our little meal, and all the kids have to show something or explain something, do a game, a skit, a dance, or something from that country so that we all can learn more
Oh, really?
about all the
That's
countries.
interesting.
That is like the best thing.
Do you make use of resource persons, like if there are people, say, from Cambodia or Thailand?
We definitely
or
do. A
whatever?
lot of the kids have students that are doing like exchange program of some sorts, or relatives they will go right into and use those
I see.
resources. It's great.
Along with this, you probably know, a lot of countries used to be having a lot of diversified crops. You know, like they would grow coffee, rice, beans,
Yes.
corn, different kinds of fruits and vegetables. And now it seems a lot of these countries have decided to take up cash crops, like devoting themselves completely to, let's say, chocolate growing, growth, or coffee growing, or some other agricultural product that brings high prices on the, you know, what happens is if they have a drought or something affects the crop, and then they have famines and they have to have food brought to them and that sort of thing. Do you think that 4-H can make people aware of this and
I think we
lead
could.
to some solutions?
If we need some guidance to help them as far as leaders to lead them in that direction. But we do have resources at the 4-H office. Well, I call it 4-H office, but it's the extension office. We have agricultural resources there that would be able to help them as well. So it's just a matter of getting the right people in the right place at the right time. But I'm sure they're fully capable of doing that.
Yeah, and some of the problems that people seem to think will happen here in this country is that if we have food sources in other countries and we depend on them,
Yes.
we don't start growing some more of our own products here. Not every product, but you know, some things, at least on a local basis, that if there are shortages, then we would be hurting in a way. So
Somewhat, yes, and I do see the agricultural part is looking into more like they're doing things through the extension office all the time, through the universities and stuff. And I think 4-H is just a branch of that. I'm sure that would definitely be involved when there's anything coming up.
The other question I have is that many of the skills and things that people do in 4-H and in farming and agriculture or whatever, there's a lot of government regulation. And by that I don't mean federal government necessarily, but local and state and other agencies that put regulations and things on a lot of activities that years ago might have been considered normal or okay or everyday. And so what happens, they put on fees perhaps, or too many regulations, and it discourages people from
We don't have any fees, which I'm proud to say. We have also at the 4-H office, free to any of the club's leaders, members, to come to the office. We have resources for different curriculums. So if somebody, say, wants to do a wind curriculum, they can learn all these different things from like the towers that we have now that we're using, the windmills and all those. They can learn projects that will be related to that. We have photography. That is another thing that definitely you can, journalize something through the photography. We actually have a robotics program that is like going and just running right now. It's really great, and it's using a lot of scientific, updated data that's, just helping the kids tremendously. So we do have a lot of resources. It's all free. We don't charge anything. If a separate club wants to do a fundraiser as maybe charging members dues or something like that, that's another thing that's all on their own. It's not a requirement at all.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate this interview, and hope you have a great time tomorrow here with the group. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Crazy.
Which bug is it now?
This one right here. It's got like a claw in the front, pincher thing.
Oh.
Did you see it? I don't know. Can you see it from there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She actually did a demonstration about 3 years ago on how to put these together. You have little platforms to push the bug up to a certain height. You've got to have the tag describing it, the species at a certain height, and then you've got a location, and it has to be a map and date and all that on the bottom. That's what all the tags mean, but she explained all this in one of her demonstrations.
And that's one of those big Luna moths right there.
Yep.
And they're kind of rare, aren't they?
I don't know. I've seen a few myself, but
I think people try to collect them.
Right. Yeah, to have that all in one piece like that was a good job.
Boy, and so this is a larger collection than perhaps.
Bill Gallagher. I'm the member of the Cornish Community Farm Committee.
And I want to ask you, Bill, what do you think is the future of small farms in the United States right now?
Oh, they're making a great comeback, and the most obvious measure of that is the farmers market and all the headlines about growing local food. And you got to compare that with 2 weeks ago when they said that the turkey from the corporate farms was poisonous, and that some people had died from that. And that's a reason that people are looking for local poultry, local vegetables, local beef, so that they can know the name of the farmer and visit the farm and know that the food that they're eating and serving to their children is healthy food and not poisonous, as we were seeing in the big turkey recall 2 weeks ago.
And aside from that, I want to ask you about the skills that are involved in local farming and local products and the arts and crafts that go along with it, like, for example, what they do in 4-H and that sort of thing. Do you see that as growing more and more, or is that going to diminish also?
No, that's growing. That's growing like the devil, because parents want to make sure that their kids know where the food is coming from. And the programs in the schools are growing. The programs of supplying local food to the school lunches is growing. Oh no, it's growing, and there's no limit to how far it goes. Agriculture just gets better and better. The soil gets more fertile as we go along, and so we're going to have better crops as we go.
So what do you see as the role of local government in this process? Do you think that they can help or impede it, or what are they doing?
Oh, they're going to help. They just got to see that the best game that they can play is in the field of economic development is going to be developing local agriculture. They're going to need canneries, they're going to need slaughterhouses, they're going to need wineries. There's all kinds of processing that needs to take place to make sure that we can keep the local food right through the winter and not just in the summer where we eat from a fresh garden. We got to preserve it as well.
One other question I have for you, Bill. Comparing New Hampshire and Vermont, are they about equal in this development now, or are they miles apart?
No, they're very similar, and in the Connecticut River Valley, of course, they're very similar, but as you go farther apart in the states, Vermont has an edge. They have sweet soil over there, and they've kept a tradition of small farms over there ever since they got first established as a state, and it's reflected in their candidates in the legislature and in the laws that they pass. They're very supportive of agriculture and the school lunch programs from local food and the whole works, but New Hampshire is coming along very nicely.
So you think that there'll be some push by communities here to get the state government of New Hampshire to do more? For example, I know they've cut the funding to UNH, for example, on some of the programs that they have as concerns, let's say 4-H and some of the other things.
Right. Well, there's this political turmoil that's been evident in the legislatures caused by a lot of money being spent on elections, and that's no way to do it. They're just trying to buy it, and then you get people that really don't know much more than how to buy an election.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand where the food is coming from. They know nothing about the soil or anything like that.
I don't think it's going to depend on the legislature and those people. I think they're going to just have to come trailing along. The people are just going to take actions on a local basis to make sure that they're going to have good, healthy food year-round for their families. That's what's going to happen. Right.
That's right. Well, thank you very much, Bill.
You're welcome.
You have a pleasant day, and we'll see you around again. And you'll be here at the next fair, I presume.
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is my wife, Kathy.
And so how did you come to Cornish, if I may ask?
We came to Cornish in June of 1996. It was after we moved to New England in October of 95 from California with our dairy goats. We came out to form a milking herd to ship milk to Vermont Butter and Cheese. We shipped milk for about 2 years. That was after we moved here to Cornish, and then we started making soap as a sideline with our surplus milk, and the soap started selling off, and we decided to go into soap making full time instead of shipping milk, and so we reduced the size of our herd to just what we need for making soap, and we make the soap and we sell it at the local farmers markets. We've sold at Cornish Farmers Market, Claremont Farmers Market. Currently we're selling at Newport Farmers Market, Lebanon Farmers Market, and New London Farmers Market.
New London, I see.
We've also sold at Hanover Farmers Market too.
So how about sales, let's say mail order or internet? Do you do any of that?
We have a website that's www.angelridgefarmnh.org. .com,
yeah. Okay.
And we also have an 800 number for direct phone sales. That's 1-800-276-1506.
I see. And I noticed in comparing what you're doing with some independent bookstore owners, they also do that sort of thing, and a lot of their sales they're finding now are on the internet rather than people coming to their bookstore.
Our internet sales are kind of slow this time of the year because the majority of our sales are through the farmers markets. In the wintertime, it'll pick up. We'll update the website with the inventory that we have and the inventory that we're carrying. It's just on the internet, we're not the only goat milk soap.
Oh, I see. So a lot of competition
So
in
there's
there.
a lot of competition across the country because the internet makes it, nationwide.
Yeah. How about internationally? Is there any call for
Internationally,
international?
we've shipped soap to Russia, to Japan, to South Africa, to Ireland, Scotland. We've shipped soap all around the world.
Wow. And you, let's say, for special seasons like the Christmas season, let's say, do you have special gift packages or something like that, or you haven't gone into that?
Gift baskets.
Yeah, we'll put together gift baskets as the customer asks. I mean, we're pretty versatile in meeting the needs of the different customers. We've provided gift baskets to different businesses and organizations for special events and special occasions. We also have a few commercial accounts that we supply. Upper Valley Co-op in White River Junction carries our soap. It's also carried at the Cornish General Store. And then there's holiday sales that we'll attend associated with Newport Farmers Market.
So my next question would be, do you think that there will always be a future or for persons like yourself who are doing this type of thing, and that farms and agriculture and so forth will continue in this century, or will they tend to kind of dwindle and fade out, or what's your take on that?
There's always going to be a niche market or specialty products produced by hand.
I see.
Procter & Gamble cannot make our soap with the same quality and dedication to product and service that we provide.
And so the quality of your soap, of course, is far superior to the mass manufactured stuff, because I noticed this, some people are complaining now about, about scented soaps, for example, the overabundance of things. Some people are allergic to it, that type of thing. And also on candles is another type of industry. But anyway, what varieties of soap you have they're all made of goat milk, but do you have any differences in it? Is it all the same?
Our basic soap is one standard recipe, and to that we will add different herbs or dried flowers that we produce and dry on the farm. For instance, lavender and lilac.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, lavender and lilac, those are some of our best sellers. Patchouli, if you're a patchouli fan, you know what patchouli is. And it's very distinctive, and the patchouli fans are very dedicated. It's an herb that we dry and blend in with the basic soap recipe. There's other herb combinations like rosemary, mint, eucalyptus.
I was going to ask you about rosemary too.
Is one that we produce. There's also a basil, sage, and mint. There's a cucumber mint that we make. One of the more fun bars that we make is a loofah. We either have a loofah in the soap, where it'll come up as you use the soap, or we've also taken the larger loofahs and poured the soap in the middle of it. So you have the loofah with soap in the middle of it. We also make unscented bars that is just the plain Castile type soap unscented, no additional scents or fragrances added to it. We also make a facial bar, which is the unscented bar with a whole rolled oats to give it a little texture. We make Garter's bar, which is lemongrass, and we put a little grit in it. We use cornmeal for that.
Really?
And then there's other bars that we'll make that will move in and out depending on how well they sell and how it's accepted by the public. We used to make a peaches and cream years ago. We've done a vanilla, we've done a pine, a cranberry. We've done
There's a coffee right now.
Yeah, we have a coffee, cinnamon,
with vanilla bean. And it's got a little texture to it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So pine soap years ago used to be very, very popular in some areas. You know, that's all. Basically, I think if you thought of a scented soap, that's what you would be buying, if I recall right. There were a lot of things that used pine scent and different.
Well, the different whims of what people are looking for kind of comes and goes. A couple of years ago, chocolate was the big flavor, so to speak, and it didn't really move.
We did it one year, and it was fun. It was a fun soap. When it foamed, it gave a little color to the foam, and we used Hershey's cocoa. But
Really?
Women tended to like it, men didn't like it. They kept saying, "I'm going to want chocolate if I use this." But it was fun. It was fun. We get to experiment with different things.
Well, actually, it makes me think that I could almost eat those soaps because of different flavorings and the fact that they have goat milk base in them. But you have other things which would prohibit me from actually eating the product.
We've had people eat the soap and complain that it's the worst tasting fudge they've ever had. And they've done just fine.
Yeah. So, in listening to you describe these various soaps and everything, and the different things, you've done a lot of study and research into this, and you've developed a real working knowledge of this. What I mean by that is the average person has no idea of what this involves, would you say?
It's a product we've been working on now for probably 12 years or more.
Really?
And we've got it down to the point where, we make the amount of soap that we sell. And we're pretty comfortable with where we are in sales and things like that. One time we were approached on going bigger, and it just wasn't something that we wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes I see this in restaurants quite often. Somebody will have a very nice restaurant and people will be lined up outside the door to get in, and then they decide, well, we're going to build a larger place, and they renovate everything, and then what happens? Everything falls off and they go out of business. I've seen that happen in a lot of places. So I always come to the conclusion it's better to have a long line of people waiting to get in and buy, eat or buy your product than to have, a big place and nobody coming. Yeah. So you've actually, I would say, succeeded in realizing the way to conduct this business, and you've learned from your experience and your knowledge and your ability, and you resisted any trend to enlarge it beyond.
Where we're at with the business right now is where we're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And with just the two of us working it, it's pretty much all we want to do.
Well, how do you feel about all of this? Obviously,
It's fun. I enjoy making the soap.
You do.
It's a very creative outlet. All our soaps are made with goat's milk, olive oil, oatmeal. They're very comfortable to the skin. They're very soothing. They're not harsh in any way. And we have quite a following. People that will come from all over. Come like to the fair here today. They know it'll be here and they stock up for the year.
Yeah, is that right? So you don't have a soap of the month type thing?
Oh no, soap is made in the
know.
winter when it's non-Cuban, and it ages for 4 months before we sell it.
Oh, so there's an aging process.
There's a major aging process. We make a cold process soap. You can make a hot process soap. It's not as good quality. You can tell when you use it that it's different.
I see. Well, that sounds interesting. And so my next question is that when you come to this fair, do you go to any other fairs with this product other than the farmer's market? Or
we come to this fair not so much to sell the soap, but it's kind of an added bonus. What we do is we run this building, which is your Sullivan County Farmers, and we promote local farming, local foods, just support a lot of education for the public. A lot of people thinking, gee, I'd love to have a goat and have no clue on how to take care of a goat. You know, we give them hints and little advice along the way, and our county extension comes in here, and they're here to help people during the day about, you know, what's wrong with my strawberry plants or whatever.
oh,
It's
so
just an
you
education
go
thing.
beyond just the concern with soap, and you're bringing
we
in
have
the
different things
skill.
on the table here. We've got 4 different farmers on the table here. We've got Riverview Pick Your Own Apples over here. We've got Road to Independence advertising. A lot of different things. We're here to educate them also.
Well, so in doing this, you're ensuring that people will have an interest and they'll try to keep the skills and things going.
We you don't want your farmers to all die off. We're here to educate the next generation so we keep agriculture alive.
So you're part of the Sullivan County Farm Bureau, is that correct?
We're here promoting the quilt on the wall. That's a fundraiser right now. Yep.
So, in talking to a lot of people though, on and off here at the fair, a lot of them are worried about disappearance of American farms. They think the small farmer in particular. They're very pessimistic about certain trends going on.
A lot of people don't understand that farming is a way of life. One parent home with the kids and working the farm with another parent, you know, when it gets to a point where having cell phones and having computers and having all these things that we love to have, running the kids here and there, it's not, you can't do everything. Farming is a slower way of life.
In other words, you're saying that you can't really operate a farm wholly by internet or technology per se, electronic, let's say by software. You have a software that'll milk your cows or something.
Right, it's not something that you can just buy a building, fill it full of milk producing units, and start putting milk out the door. It's something that you have to have a passion for. You have to understand that those are animals that you've raised and bred and housed and fed.
They look to you for
the purpose that they're there for, whether it's beef, pork, eggs, milk, vegetables, corn, hay, wheat, lumber, whatever it is that the product is that you're growing. It's just not something that you can just say 1 minute and say, well, I want 50,000 board feet of lumber that I want to send to a mill today. It takes 20 years to do that.
But there are people that seem to try to do that. I run into them. In other words, they can go in and cut down let's say, clear cut a forest almost in a day or so, strip all the trees, and then send it off to wherever it's going, the finished product and so forth. And they think that they can continue to do that, you know, run everything on software.
Well, somebody's growing the trees.
Right. somebody's growing the trees, somebody's managing the wildlife,
Somebody's replanting.
somebody's harvesting the wood.
There's a full circle here, and I think people need to realize that farmers give up something. You know, they're not going to have the most up-to-date computers. They're not going to drive the best cars. Their kids probably not going to go to the Ivy League college.
But I'm just wondering myself if the government will require certain things which will continue to affect small farmers in ways so that they cannot really continue.
There's ups and downs. When one of the parents have to go out and get a job that provides health insurance, we're not doing our farmers any justice there.
That's right.
That's where you think, you know, I don't know if I want to go to a socialized, you know, health plan, but that's one of the spots where it would help. Because just to have basic care for your kids, you've got to have insurance.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to provide this. What happens if the husband breaks his leg and he's the only one that can do his part of
Or farm
the
injuries
job?
used to be very common, you know.
Well,
Some people were killed.
information and technology has come a long way, and it has helped the farmer. I'm not milking by hand, I'm milking with machines. And I'm very grateful for that. But my kids grew up knowing that, you know, they may not have all the new computer games and things, but I think they got more of a sense of a work ethic that, you know, is promoted with farming. But pretty much you can get vegetables produced in mass quantity, you know, on these giant farms. But you see the recalls and all of that, and when you go and you can talk to the farmer and you can pick up the produce and you find out about them. People ask us all the time about where did the name Angel Ridge come from. We give them the story, and you know, they want to get that one-on-one with where their food is coming, or where their soaps are coming, or where their maple is coming. They want to know where it is. It's all part of that whole circle.
Well, that's good, and I hope you will be able to continue doing that, and everybody that comes to you will come away with a better understanding of this, because there are a lot of people, they are so divorced from nature, from reality, and they're interested only in quick results, fast profits, quick profits, that kind of thing, and they have no responsibility.
And there is the niche in the world that needs that. I mean, we all work as a group, and you still have to remember that, you know, we have to take care of the ones on the other end also.
That's right.
You know?
Well, thank you very much. You've given me another sense of, let's say, satisfaction that the farms and rural life will continue. But I'm also afraid that a development of sorts will encroach upon small villages, on farmlands.
Well, there'll always be that. I mean, we are increasing in population, and the only way to stop that is a little more education. And you gotta just realize that our resources are limited. You gotta take care of them. And I think we're starting to see that in the world.
In other words, we just can't keep consuming and consuming and not renewing things, put it that way. Well, anything else that you'd like to say before we sign off here?
No farms, no food. It's really serious.
Yes. And the thing is, if people around the world, let's say, only want to grow a specific cash crop, and if something happens to that crop, they're going to be in trouble if they don't have other foods available to them, if they don't grow crops that can sustain them. In case that happens.
Most small farms know to diversify. They really do.
That's how they survive.
That's how they survive. You see it in Taylor Brothers syrup. They do quite a great bunch of sales in their cheeses and their other things that they're doing. Even the candy-colored peanuts, candy-coated peanuts that they do that's made with the maple candy. There's always that. There's other ways to diversify, and farmers are learning that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and thank you very much. I appreciate this interview, and I hope that you'll continue to be here at the fair every year.
We're always here, and there's a lot of us that promote agriculture here at the fair.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Do you think that the small farm and let's say the rural villages or rural areas will survive in this century, in this country at least?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and it's a very timely question for a number of reasons, not just for farms, but for such things such as 4-H. This year, the state of New Hampshire has taken a really huge budget cut out of UNH, which is what supports agriculture.
Oh, they do. I see. I wondered about that because I heard about UNH.
We've had many positions in 4-H. Many leaders from different counties have taken early retirement at their county's at the state's request. The university, where I have 2 daughters that go to UNH.
Really?
Teachers, instructors, different positions at UNH have been cut because of these budget cuts. They've kind of tried to split their cutting of funds over a 2-year period. So at this point, we really sit in a position where until January, we don't know what our budget is for 4-H next year, whether we'll have these sort of things. So having said that, these people that, like say, the people that own these horses out here, the woman owns a riding stable, and that's her livelihood. That's her business. And this is just kind of a bonus to be able to come out and have her kids compete and have the public see these sort of things. I think that machinery is basically replacing a lot of what agriculture started as. I mean, we used animals in the beginning, and recognizing that it's faster and easier to use a tractor, yet a tractor is quite expensive.
And it consumes a lot of fuel.
And it consumes a lot of fuel with the current cost of gas and repairs and those sort of things. So it's come to a point where I think it kind of sits in a balance as to what's going to happen.
Yeah, we need a kind of a balance in all the things that we're doing in a way, and not go just in one direction as opposed to anything else.
Right.
So what you're saying is that with these budget cuts, people are in essence not going to be able to do these activities anymore for various reasons.
The potential exists. Yeah. We don't have a final budget yet until I guess they're saying January. But to the point of certain, some counties do not have an educator any longer. Their positions have been removed and they have not been replaced.
Well, do county taxes go into some of this? I mean, I know on my property taxes, or on my taxes I pay there, a certain amount goes to the county, or it's figured in.
I'm not sure how that works. I don't know how the state budget works and how the counties add to that. I'm really not sure.
Well, see, the old county farms used to be somewhat self-supporting.
Right.
And they took in people that were, let's say, they didn't have any family, or they were orphans, or they had some other problem, or didn't have any money, or whatever it was.
Right.
And I remember going with my grandparents to the one in Unity to see an old farmhand that worked for my great-grandfather on the farm there for years.
Yeah.
And he's buried there. And then years later, I got a job up there on in the corrections department there. After they built a new jail and everything there. And I got to know the directors and everything, but my parents did and so forth. But all that has changed, and there was some notions about dropping the farm, for example. They did away with one of the houses where people could board or stay there to work, and live there. And they concentrated mainly on the hospital and the jail, and I think maybe having somebody assume the farm land or try to run it to make money on it. Whereas before it was sort of self-supporting, and of course the people from the jail would, especially those, not so much the ones waiting for sentencing or anything, but those that had been sentenced to the House of Corrections, they would work there and everything. So now the trend seems to be, are these counties putting their money into something else, or are they?
I just don't think they have money.
They don't have money.
I think the money has basically just been cut, and it's my understanding that UNH has actually hired an individual from another state to help them, I guess, decide what they're going to do with what budget they have. This is an individual apparently, or a group that does this for a living, and they're acting as a consultant to help them kind of reorganize, I think.
Well, this brings up something I've wondered about over the years. Do we really need to hire a large amount of consultants or people to conduct study after study on the same basic problems that have been facing us all the time, and try to find experts who have no inkling of what's going on locally, come in and suggest ideas that they've imported from somewhere else?
When they don't know exactly what an area might have tried already, or, I kind of think about it and wonder, what some options are. And I mean, there are, in every county, there are 4-H leaders like myself, unpaid, I'm an operating room nurse, and I do this for fun, and so that I can provide opportunities for, in this case, children to work with horses that couldn't afford to have them any other way. Whether it's a matter of taking all of the volunteers, leaders like myself, and finding ways to do more fundraising for our own, and starting to just run some of these programs ourselves. I mean, we just don't have the office background that these other leaders, the paid staff have, as far as connecting with, reserving things for our January horse quiz bowl contest, and we do a variety of contests throughout the year. We obtain facilities where we do qualifying horse shows. We just did our state horse show at Lancaster Fairgrounds this year because we could do it for less cost. So we need to, I think, really regroup and look at just where we can all work together to try to continue and figure out if there's things that we need to drop, if there's things that maybe, we could do without. For the horse project, which is where my heart is, these kids compete to have the opportunity to go to nationals, which are in Kentucky. That's not a riding competition, but it's a competition for horse knowledge, it's horse science, understanding the use of horses, the breeds of horses, and I have a daughter who went to Kentucky a couple of years ago, was very glad that she got to go. From a riding standpoint, after we go through our qualifying and our state horse show, we take 17 youth to Eastern States in September down in Springfield, Massachusetts, which I've volunteered as chaperone this year. So we will be taking 17 youth from New Hampshire to ride against all of New England horses from 4-H, which is an opportunity that kids really enjoy. And part of the thing about 4-H that I think we're noticing we don't get so much out of the schools is that we try to teach leadership. We make kids give oral presentations amongst their peers. We make them do reports on things. We make them take care of their own animals. Basically, a 4-H child, once they get to a horse show, their parents sit on their hands, if you will, and the youth are all responsible for their own horse. They can get help from another 4-H youth, but they can't get help from their parents.
Well, that's a way of actually empowering the students or the children or those that are in this program,
exactly,
rather than having them rely on familiar faces and that sort of thing.
Right.
And one thing I wanted to ask you, you know, you hear about more tax cuts for corporations and everything, and yet corporations aren't really funding any of these things, are they?
I don't think so. I don't know that for a fact, but I know that, you know, I would say that more money goes into very large agricultural adventures or ventures
That'll make money for them.
That will make money for them, making it more difficult for any small or local, you know, farmers. You know, we have in this area in Plainfield, we have a local family that got together and decided that they would make their own, they milk cows and decided to bottle their own milk, go back to the old ways, and have made a wonderful living at it. It's something you don't see all the time.
Well, do you think that we're becoming a nation of volunteers? And when I say volunteers, more and more programs are relying on people to volunteer for this, that, and everything, either time or energy or money or goods or whatever. And these people are actually sacrificing.
That's true.
Where in the old days it used to be that if there was a volunteer, it meant somebody was out of work. There was no job that somebody could be doing a job. You were taking away a job. Now that's changed.
We added on to our other job and do it as, I guess you'd call it a hobby, but it's much more involved than a hobby.
And what they do is to eliminate jobs. So what happens, these people have to do the work of 2 or 3 or 4 people, where they had 5 or 6 people working. And you see a lot of that. I saw a lot of changes when I went to work in the Postal Service. When I first went to the facility in White River, they had all kinds of people casing letters manually. Then they went to automation. Well, the automation is very expensive, and what they didn't foresee was the fact that the internet and electronic information would alter some of that, but that's not the whole story. There's other reasons why. And of course, I was talking to a gentleman early about how originally steam power and steamboats were being developed in this country, and they were going to have a system of canals coming from Lake Champlain over Winnipesaukee and all through New England. And they started digging in some places to do that. But then the railroads came along, changed all of that. Then the railroads went into practically every small town or place where they could get through. And then, and that sort of brought a certain prosperity to each town. And then when the railroads went out of existence practically, these towns have virtually dried up. They've dried up. If you go up north in upper New Hampshire where there were railroads, or you go over in Vermont, and you see a lot of towns that had nice homes, nice mansions, and they were serviced by the railroad. And I'm not saying there weren't poor people or farmers, but you go there and these places are deteriorating. There's nothing there.
Unless they can make them some sort of a monument or a tourist attraction.
Or they build condominiums and second homes.
Exactly.
And I'm looking at all the real estate papers for the last 6 months or a year or whatever, and I noticed that people who used to have second and third and fourth homes, they were worth all kinds of money, trying to unload them because they have to pay a lot of income tax, and a lot of, property taxes as well, and have to pay the fuel costs of trying to keep them, you know, and gas driving them, and a lot of condominium owners and resort people that buy these timeshares, they have to pay a maintenance fee every month, and a lot of other things, membership fees and all of that, and they don't really own anything. They just own space and time and things, but they don't own the land or the property. And what you're seeing is a lot of what I would say land monopolists. They acquire vast tracts of land which might have been productive in some other way, like for agriculture, let's say, and of course, one of the biggest monopolists is the federal government because they have large tracts of land. People don't think of that, or towns or cities as monopolizing land, but if you go and look at all the vacant lots, abandoned buildings, businesses out in different towns and villages and everything, and they belong to the public, but nothing is happening on them, and so they're not getting any income. Oh, it's a beautiful horse.
So here are 3 4-H riders doing what they love best.
And so we're hoping that the state budget will change in favor of maintaining these programs, the 4-H programs. Is there a big difference between Vermont and New Hampshire as far as the state budgets? I'm not really too familiar with.
I'm not real familiar with Vermont either. I don't think I really could even do it justice. I don't really know.
Well,
I do know that their 4-H program seems to be a little more active than ours.
Really?
Or at least as an observation at some of the events when we go to eastern states, they have a large amount of riders, and they're very knowledgeable. They frequently do very well for like the knowledge quiz that they take and different activities, their horse knowledge and things like that. I think their programs in Vermont may be a little more rigorous. They expect a little more of their youth.
Well, you know, my observation, driving around Vermont for the Postal Service, you have the Green Mountain Riders Association down in South Woodstock.
Exactly.
And you go up through Thetford and I can't think of the other towns up in there, but there are quite a few horse farms, and they have some events going on up there. I've gone by when they're happening, and I almost came to the conclusion that maybe there were going to be more horses in Vermont than cows, because you know they used to say there were more cows in Vermont than people. And I was born in Windsor, of course, but you know, that was an old saying way back.
An interesting fact was I attended a activity called the Farm and Forest Conference or whatever in northern, it was down in Manchester, New Hampshire last year, and I went to the USDA booth and was curious as to if they could tell me how many horses there were in New Hampshire or in New England or anything like that. Because they had a large publication that had all the number of cattle, the number of other farm animals. And needless to say, the only thing he could tell me was how many draft horses there were that were working on farms.
Yeah, that's
he had no knowledge of saddle horses or horses used for riding businesses or anything like that.
Well, see, that's a good example of where people are locked into certain things and they don't have a wider scope. So when they come up with something that they think will solve problems, when they implement those things, they always have an unforeseen consequence.
Right.
And I think the other reason that they don't really know about that, they don't see it as an industry, let's say, of making money.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly right. They see it as a hobby. And for some people, it's their livelihood.
Right. And that's true of a lot of other things that government is sticking their fingers into, that the basic livelihood, they're coming in and regulating people to the extent that they have to go out of business. Like grandma wants to bake cakes and cookies and sell them to the neighbors, well, she's got to have a kitchen full of sterilized equipment and everything else because the government's safeguarding the public.
Exactly. And there is a need for safe governing, but on the other hand, if it requires such a financial output, then she's not going to be able to make it a livelihood.
Well, you see, what I've noticed is when it comes to cities and towns, because I live in Claremont, that a lot of that is because they're in financial difficulties and they need to get fees to make up the losses or what they consider losses, and they make money and they have no other way of doing it.
That's exactly right.
So, well, I have to go because my battery is going down. Well, thank you very much. Okay, let me ask you this. You think it's important that the skills of agriculture and farming be passed on to younger generations in hopes that they will not be completely absorbed by technology and other things?
Well, I think basic skills with agriculture is something that has to be passed on in order for the farm community to survive. And I really think that the 4-H program is one of those wonderful things that really teaches a lot of those basic skills in taking care of animals and that kind of stuff. And there's really some really great 4-H programs in this area, and we're lucky to have it.
Yes, and it would be the same too for, let's say, basic skills for being in the woods and in the forests and nature programs and that sort of thing, because a lot of people in various parts of the country are becoming more aware of how much has changed and how sometimes they really don't have the knowledge or the skills that perhaps they should have. What do you think about that?
Well, responsible stewardship of our land is very important. As you know, global warming is one of the big concerns of the community, whether it be something that man has created or whether it's one of those cycle things. It's anyone's best guess. But responsible stewardship of the land begins with, doing the right things with the land, responsible land use, including timber harvest. I really pretty much against clear cutting because I think this takes too long for the stuff to come back.
Yeah, that's true.
With the grasslands and all that sort of stuff, I think the farm community in this area does a really good job with it. They seem to rotate their crops and really great. And the farms is really is how America started. And without that continuing, we're going to be in trouble.
Yes, and the food supplies around the world are being bought up by more rich and perhaps powerful nations, and there's a lot of competition for that, and a lot of the peoples in these various countries have changed their way of growing things into single crops, and they don't have the diversified agriculture, so consequently when something goes wrong with the prices, they end up in trouble too, as you know.
Well, it is, and it's a supply and demand type economy and world we live in, and unfortunately, some people will not diversify enough to make that happen. I love seeing the farm stands in the summertime to see the different foodstuffs that people grow, and we really need more of that. Get back to that basic thing of raising your own vegetables and fruits and that kind of stuff. I think it's a good thing, and I think people need to learn those skills.
Well, can I ask you this question then? What is the role of government in all of this? Because it seems to me a lot of people are finding regulations being enacted as we speak, limiting or prohibiting or banning or controlling certain activities that perhaps were more open and freer in times past,
Well, government to a certain extent has to be a partner in anything that goes on, whether it be regulations or whatever. And one of the good things that's come out of government regulations is the banning of DDT. I mean, DDT was a real bad poison, and in my lifetime seeing it used is very effective, but it has a lot of long-term effects. So I think government needs to play a role in that to make sure what we do it safely, because you can see a lot of the industries and other businesses that don't want to conform to safely practice have moved off to third world countries, including Mexico. Is that right? Well,
and they have in China too. They've sent a lot of stuff. India,
absolutely.
They've sent a lot of things there.
The ban of asbestos was another one. I mean, asbestos was a great building material. It was a great insulator, but the long-term effects of a lot of that stuff has maimed and killed a lot of people. And so we really need to have responsible leadership in the government to make sure that we're not doing things to harm ourselves or the environment. And I think that, stuff should be thoroughly tested before it's used. Nobody really knows what long-term effects anything is going to do. The good old days, Yeah, they were good, but you know, today's a lot better. You know, running water, electricity is not all that bad.
Yeah, and we have a greater availability of different foods than we had, because years ago you only got just a few bananas, maybe an occasional coconut from tropical areas. We got some coffee and tea, but still we didn't get the wide varieties that you see on the shelves today.
No, you know, and today with, you know, you can get virtually fresh fruits and vegetables year round because of the worldwide transportation that we have. You know, and that's a good thing. I mean, that's really a good thing, because of our diets vary now, and probably for the most part better, because I can remember when I was a kid, we raised vegetables. My mother did a lot of canning. You know, so your vegetables that you raised were either consumed when they were really fresh, which was the best part, or they were canned. You know, it was just, it was kind of the way it was.
Yeah, that's true, and I think there's a great interest in people learning to do the old way of canning their vegetables from their gardens and things, and great revival in it.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that when you talk about canning to a lot of the young folks today, and oh, that's what you got off the supermarket shelf. But the old way, you know, you use the glass jars and you can your stuff yourself, and
that's right.
and that's a skill that not everybody knows today.
That's true. And they used to use paraffin wax to seal them, and rubber seals.
Well, they did,
some
and
of them,
you know, they made their own jams and jellies, and you know, I mean, those are good things to know.
My name's Irma Barnes.
And where are you from?
I'm from Piermont, New Hampshire.
Piermont, and this is your mother. Now, what is your name?
Katie Blaine.
Katie Blaine. And let me ask you this: how long have you been coming to the fair here?
I think about 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to return next year.
Yep.
And what did you enter, and what was your award for?
Everyone here at the fair, every livestock exhibitor took a ag quiz, and I got second in the junior division with a score of 33 out of 35, and I got a $10 check and the certificate here.
Well, and you must be fairly proud of what he's accomplished, and you're fully supportive of all that he does.
Yes, I am.
Yes, and so next year, are you going to enter the same thing, or what will happen there?
Yeah. Next year, I'm going to be showing my sheep here, as well as cows, and I'm probably going to be taking the test again, I guess. They make you do it, so.
I see. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll do it. It's, you know, you're doing a lot now, and you've accomplished a lot more than many people will ever think about doing. And are you planning to make a career in agriculture?
Yeah, actually. I would like to have a sheep farm.
I see.
To continue with that.
And are you in school now, or what?
Yep, I go to Woodsville High School. I'm going to be a junior this fall.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And are you planning to go to college, perhaps?
Yeah, I'd like to go to UNH.
Yeah, well, let me recommend it, because I'm a graduate from UNH too.
Nice.
And not in agriculture, but it's been well known over the years. And of course, you know, it was way back. They had a lot of things in the farm. When I was there, the barns are a little different, I guess, than what they are now, and it's changed a lot, but it's still a great school. And I hope that perhaps you'll get a scholarship out of it to go there.
Possibly. I already have one scholarship.
Do you? Yeah.
Not to UNH, though.
Not for UNH?
No, this past year, for English class, everyone in my class went into Poetry Out Loud, and it was, I got second in that for the school, and I got a $15,000 scholarship to Southern New Hampshire University.
That's great. Yeah. So that shows that there's really a lot of opportunities in doing things, and you work hard at it, and you'll get ahead. Well, thank you very much for this interview.
You're welcome.
And you have a great day, and we'll see you here next year, I hope.
Yep.
And today, to have to research it out and do it, people can look on the internet and find a source how to do that sort of stuff. And you know, it's a good resource, but you know, you got to learn it.
Yeah. You can't really just look at it on a TV monitor, let's say, and then think, well, I know how to do it, and you've got to get hands-on experience and everything.
Without question, and a lot of it's trial and error nowadays, where those were taught skills 75 and 100 years ago. Those were taught skills, and now it's more of a skill that you don't know how to do it, and you go to the internet and find out how to do it. So, you know, it can be a learning curve with that stuff.
Yeah, in the old days, you had to, in some cases, apprentice or learn from people who knew how to do all of these things, and maybe you learned some in your family. And occasionally you could go to special schools for that. But today, you can find instructional videos and things like that.
Oh yes. You know, the thing with those is when they had huge families was to work the farm. Nowadays, you know, huge families. You need a huge income to make that work if you have a huge family, and families today aren't huge anymore. Well, very rarely are they.
That's true.
You know, with a couple or three kids, and that's all. But back in the old days, you needed a dozen or more to work the farm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And perhaps that's why some people think that agriculture and the small farms and small communities are on the way out.
Well, it would be an unfortunate thing to see small farms go out, because I think they bring a lot to America. Certainly in this area, small farms are a great asset to our communities. You know, the people work very hard making a living, and by golly, you know, my hat's off to them.
The other thing I should ask you, some farms like in Vermont, and I believe there are probably some in New Hampshire, and a number of other enterprises that are not agricultural, have to import workers from other countries under a special visa program to get help to harvest crops or to conduct their business, or, you know, to work as housekeepers in resorts and areas like that. So why do you think it is that people who are with high unemployment here will not go into these jobs, even temporarily, just to keep a few dollars coming in rather than remain unemployed?
Well, in a lot of cases, you know, people would have to travel long distances and follow the work, and their obligations are really with their family from day to day, week to week, whereas these migrant workers travel with the food crop. And generally, local producers aren't willing to hire local help for whatever reason it is, whether they can pay them less or living conditions aren't so good. But I think that, you know, a lot of them aren't given that opportunity.
Well, isn't it also true that sometimes if these people, like you say, come in for a temporary stay, sometimes 6 months, possibly a year, but they're also given, you know, room and board and that sort of thing, and whereas a person, like you were saying, has to travel, gas prices are high, he may not actually know how to do some of the work also.
That's true, and whereas migrant workers are somewhat skilled in whatever they're doing, whether it be apple picking or berry picking or pumpkin picking or whatever, they're somewhat skilled in those things, and they're willing, you know, they're willing to work whatever hours is for their board and room and a few bucks to take back to the old country when they go back. And a lot of times, if they go back, you know, then that happens a lot more than it should. You know, but I think that, you know, in some cases where migrant workers are paid a very minimum wage versus somebody that's on unemployment, by the time that you take the necessary taxes out of that minimum wage and figure in the traveling, it would actually cost people to take one of those jobs. It would cost them.
I see. Well, actually, when it comes to imported workers, some that come in actually and even possess a green card, let's say, for a length of time, or a special working visa that allows them to stay for considerable periods, they pay some degree of Social Security and taxes. But a lot of cases, their employers do not have to pay a minimum wage per se because they're supplying room and board, so they get a special tax deduction from that.
They do, which in effect makes that minimum wage a whole lot less than what they're actually making per hour, because then you factor in room and board. That takes away from that a lot, and you know, if you've got 40 or 50 people working for you and you can give them room and board, and you can cook for those many people in that whatever time it is a day. Actually, the meals will end up being pretty cheap, but I'm sure that there's some sort of a way around the paying of the proper taxes for them.
Yeah,
and I'm only speculating on that.
Yeah, well, there is a certain amount. I'm thinking more of Chinese restaurant workers who are imported to wait tables and cook and do that sort of thing. And most of these restaurants, they have a corporate headquarters in another state, so they pay their actual income taxes in another state through the corporate headquarters, and that goes on in this country quite a bit.
And with those kinds of migrant workers, this revolving door with them.
Yes.
They'll show up, say, in this area for 3 or 4 months, and next thing they're gone, and there's a whole fresh crop of them. So that may end up being one of those shell games with which shells the peanut under, you know, and you keep moving those people around. I think it's very difficult for Uncle Sam, the tax man, to keep on top of that.
Well, one reason why, it's not a question necessarily of taxes, it's because the people who are running all of these things are well organized. If you go down to New York, you can find sections where they have their own schools that teach English as a second language. They have manuals for restaurant workers, both in English and in Chinese. They have driving schools. They have schools that teach, I guess I said that, English as a second language. And they have things that if they want to become citizens, they can go through that. They have legal services. They have rooms where you can look up numbers all across the country. If you want to work in Ohio, you want to work in Texas or California, whatever. And it's not only the Chinese, but there are other ethnic groups that come to this country, and they set up similar networks, and they pool their money in.
They do. Oh, excuse me.
Okay. Well, I've seen a number of, you know, Chinese jugglers and, you know, the things that they do. But I have to say that as skilled as they are and as complex, you know, intricate, that I don't see any comparison. You guys are really unique in what you do.
Thank you.
And so my next question is, do you enjoy coming to a place like Cornish, and what's your impression of it?
I gotta say, sometimes we do these beautiful performing arts centers, and there's so much pressure for them to sell all these tickets and all that, and it's sometimes hard to enjoy the experience. But when you're here at a festival where it's a small town community and everybody comes out, and you got these huge crowds and they're sitting on the ground or on chairs or whatever, they seem to really give you even more energy than sometimes people in a big performing arts center, just because they're ready to have some fun. And luckily, you know, like we said earlier, people don't get to see what we do. We try to be unique and different, so we get a little more of an energy from this kind of hometown kind of crowd. It's like the same kind of town we grew up in. We grew up in a small town in Maine called Buckfield.
So you're familiar with all the...
Yeah, this town's actually probably 10 times bigger than our town.
Really?
We only had about 1,200 to 2,000 people in our town.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a very, very small town we grew up in.
Well, I thank you very much. I know you're tired from this routine, or maybe not. Just one more.
Hi, my name is Mary Moran. I'm Jeff's wife.
Oh, wow.
I'm here also with a snowmobile, the Sugar Valley Snow Riders, parking cars for the past couple days. I've been to the fair since I was a child. I used to show beef cattle there. So
oh, really?
That was always fun.
Yeah. And you're not doing that anymore, I take it?
I'm not showing I have 2 children in there showing dairy cows this year, so they're having fun doing that. And my daughter has showed in the past.
Oh, that's your daughter? I see. And you're not showing anything this year, or are you?
I showed last year, and I've showed for probably like 4 or 5 years.
I see. And did you take any prizes, or how did you do?
I did pretty well, and I also enter arts and crafts up in
I
the
see.
school.
Okay, and how did you do when you were showing?
I did well. I took they had some fitting and showmanship classes I did pretty well in, and it was a kind of small class because I used to show longhorns, so it was a small class that there's not very many of those around.
Yeah.
But I always had a great time as a kid staying at the fair, and I was also a 4-H'er, so I entered crafts and projects from the year in the fair, and used to win. It was fun getting ribbons and showing off what you've done for the year.
So 4-H is a very important part of your life, then, I would say.
Yeah, I've been in, well, not now, but I was in 4-H probably starting, well, they start at 8 years old. So I was from 8 to probably 16 years old. I was in 4-H.
So you see any trends to small farms disappearing in this century and the agricultural skills diminishing, or what?
Yes and no. I mean, I still think it's an important part of a lot of kids' lives. I mean, my kids have been involved in it, but I think, sometimes it's good to have events like this so people are aware of what's going on, and they sometimes forget of the small people and what keeps.
And how about your husband?
Going and milk going and.
Yeah, that's true. And I've talked to a lot of people that have that same, let's say, philosophy and outlook on life. How about your husband? Does he do anything in agriculture, or?
He hasn't. Not so much farming. He's actually a firefighter, so
I
he spends
see.
most of his time doing that.
Oh, yeah, so he's pretty busy.
Yeah, or paramedic. He's a paramedic, so we do that. And then hunting and wildlife, and he enjoys being out in the woods. So
and snowmobiling, I'm sure.
And we do as much as we can, a spare time working is a big part of our life. So when we get a little free time, we get to go snowmobiling. So.
Yeah, and one thing that I found that some people still have a lot of misconceptions about snowmobiling, partly because I think some people are irresponsible, or they.
Yeah, unfortunately, when there's a few people out there that do some things that are unpleasant to land, a lot of the reason why we have trail networks is because of private landowners. And so everybody has to be really respectful of those landowners, because that's why we have a lot of the trails. Otherwise, we couldn't connect trails together. And really, there's a group of people that go out and put a lot of time and effort into bridges and trail networks, and that everybody can enjoy. So if you don't respect that, and remember to think, as you drive through, if you see people out on their property, remember just to wave and say thank you for letting us use your property. That's really important.
Yeah, my name is Tony Parham from Woodstock, Vermont. It's called Simple Teas. What we do here is we make all these fresh syrups out of locally grown fresh mint and basil, and then I make Italian style sodas where I mix them. I muddle fresh ingredients as well as seltzer water and my homemade Simple Tea syrup.
What's this tea you just stirred?
This is a this is a lemon maple soda. So I take fresh lemon, I muddle that, fill the glass up with ice, heavily coated with local Vermont maple syrup, and then I top it off with seltzer water.
I see. And use only Vermont maple syrup. You don't
Well, I don't
branch into
discriminate. New Hampshire's close enough. I don't know if it tastes different than our maple syrup, but
School's only about a mile from that.
Now,
So
you
I
grew
swim
up in-
there in the morning before school.
I see. Did you grow up in Brownsville?
I grew up in Cincinnati.
Oh, in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yes, yes.
And what brought you out to Brownsville, if I may ask?
My mother was from Boston, so we always had a summer house in northern New Hampshire, and I always felt much more at home in northern New England. Knew that I wanted to ultimately come here. I've had many adventures before this. And so I didn't know that I was going to end up in Brownsville. That just turned out to be a coincidence. I found a house I loved in Brownsville, so I ended up in Brownsville.
Well, in that neck of the woods and going up through the Woodstock and everything, been a number of famous people there, and everything. And a lot of tourists come through, and a lot of skiers and hikers and everything. And so this is your first exhibit here at the fair, because this is the first year they've had it.
That's right.
And What made you choose coming here? Just because it was nearby, or?
Well, I normally do the Windsor Farmers Market on Sundays, and they visited the farmers market several weeks ago and asked if we would like to do this on Saturday and Sunday, and I thought, sure, why not? The thing with the farmers market is that if you have vegetables, people come back every week and renew their supply, but this isn't something that you go through in a week.
Yeah, you don't use it up.
Your market is limited if you just stay in one spot.
Now, are you doing anything with internet sales, for example?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. I also own a bed and breakfast.
Oh, well.
So I am going to attach this to my bed and breakfast
Now,
website.
your bed and breakfast is in Brownsville?
It is.
Aha. My son
I do a lot of
works.
things. And it's really coming back to your own roots. I think it's what your family's done and what you've learned over the years growing up. And
So you think that families that are doing this and similar things will pass these on and continue the arts and the crafts?
I really hope so. Like Tina down the way here, who has Once Upon a Chick, has 2 little girls. They farm, you know, and their girls are very involved with 4-H, and I think it's all part of that family nucleus that, you know, if you're doing it, your kids are going to learn how to do it, and they may not do it right off, you know. They might be 40 years old before at least they know how.
Yeah, they have the basics.
Right, and you can be very self-sufficient when you know, do all of these things.
Well, isn't that part of the old way, actually, to be a little bit self-sufficient, you know, be able to do things? And, well, let me ask you this. You were mentioning about the regulations and the various fees and policies that these markets have. Could you elaborate a little bit on that as to whether they are helpful to those that are attending farmers markets or fairs or anything?
It's helpful for the fact that they do come out to the fairs, to the markets, and look at your product. So they're helpful in that fact because, you know, basically they're looking for a label, a name, a phone number. So, you know, because, you know, what if someone gets sick? You want to know where that product came from.
Okay.
And they're looking to make sure that everything's sealed, like especially for me where I have the jams. They're very helpful as far as the markets. Some markets you have to have all of the regulatory things. You have to be juried, which means someone has to taste it. It has to be approved by the state. And as far as retail, it's very expensive. So the farmers markets are actually a really nice way for people who are trying to make some extra money. And it's a very family community. So it's
Now, you were saying that the regulations you think are a good thing to help people, and you mentioned something about they're testing to see what the acidity of your preserves are.
yeah,
things like
if I were to go retail, I would have to have all of my products tested through the state and the health department to be able to retail them into stores. So that's why I do this, because I don't have to do all of that.
Now, can you do internet sales, or do you, or how?
I do not do internet sales, and I think it's the same thing. You have to abide by the regulations.
Oh, I see.
And all of that. And as you can tell, there is no back label, so there's no nutritional labels.
Oh,
which
yeah.
means it's never been tested.
It's never been tested.
So it's just, you know, pure out of my small batch out of my home.
Well, I know there's been a flap over the right to drink raw milk. And
Right.
of course, I grew up when
I drank raw milk.
pasteurization on the farm.
The farm was like 3 houses down, and we drank raw milk, and we are fine.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons they did that, because apparently there was a lot of tuberculosis in some of the cows in early years or whatever. But, you know, a lot of people lived all through that, and of course during the war, after the war, I think more regulations came in, and milk companies began to demand certain things of farmers, you know, like milk houses and coolers.
Oh,
and,
yeah. To make it
things.
more sanitary, I think,
Yeah.
as far as...
So that's one of the things that I've been concerned about, is the fact that technology seems to be taking over a lot of the enterprises and everything. And in some cases it helps, but again, you have to go through a ritual to get
Right,
everything
and
there.
you know, like with the jams, you know, once you go retail, you probably have to put some type of preservative in it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
Because honestly, I've never seen one that's all natural, nothing in it, that's going to sit on a shelf and make it for any length of time.
Yeah, and I think commercial stores want things with a fairly good shelf life, as they call it.
Yes.
And they want a big turnover of products, you know. So if you have a product that only appeals to a small number, like say some special berry or whatever it is, and they don't make a lot of sales, and they tend to discontinue it and everything.
And that's why the farmer's market's nice, because people come and they have their standards with them. They go, oh wow, pear ginger. They try that, and then they have them come back every week or every couple of weeks to buy it. Or the pineapple marmalade, you know, oh, I use it on crab cakes, so they go home and use it, and they come back next week and buy it, you know. And I do, I literally use it on crab cakes. And, you know, like the cranberry orange, somebody bought it, one of my friends bought it and said, oh my God, I put it on a turkey sandwich. So it's those kinds of things that you can do in the different flavors, and there's something for everybody.
Well, thank you very much,
You're
and I
welcome.
appreciate it. You're lending some moral support?
Moral support, cheering cows on, shoveling, holding umbrellas, and yelling, "Go Heifers!"
And your name is Bill?
Bill, yeah. We're all from Heartland Four Corners.
Heartland Four Corners.
Continental Co-housing and Cedar Mountain Farm.
Cedar Mountain Farm. Well,
And there's one of the farmers over there in
the community type farm.
Yeah.
Did I understand correctly?
There's one owner, but then who owns the farm and does most of the work, but then the houses are all on the same land, and
And the big co-housing community of all the people is called Cobb Hill, but the farm connected to it is called Cedar Mountain Farm.
You guys want to show your shirts?
Cleaning up. That's got to do your chores.
Yeah, all gonna be shined up.
So everybody that brings their stuff in.
Okay,
Your name?
I'm Ruth Richardson LaRue. Grew up here in Cornish. Went to grade school right in this, well, this part of the building wasn't here, but I went in this school. Then I, of course, moved on, moved to Claremont, had a business there for 30 years as a tailor. And I moved back to Cornish, and now I do judge the knitting department along with a wonderful lady, Lois, who runs White River Knitting Store. And we also have a lot of helpers in there. But there's other categories in there
I see.
as far as projects, crafts, quilting.
And these are skills that you're hoping will be passed on to younger generations as a result of this fair?
Absolutely. I think knitting is already making a big comeback.
Yes. And
Wonderful new fibers out there.
maybe you know Sylvia Howe, who has the knitting class at the Senior Center in
Yes,
Claremont,
I do.
New Hampshire.
I do know Sylvia Howe.
And of course she was at the Old Home Day, but I don't know if either of you were at the Old Home Day.
I was working in the kitchen.
Oh, that's right. So you met me. You already know me.
That's right.
I already am going to put you in the other video there too.
Oh, dear.
You know, when I get time to do it. And again, would you give me your name again?
I'm Melanie Aguiar. I am a relatively new resident to this area of the country. We moved here approximately 3 years ago from Rhode Island, and prior to that from New York. I grew up in New York, and I am a member of the Cornish Quilters and the Cornish Garden Club. And both the quilts are up on display. We have a quilt that is for a raffle that was made by all of the members, and we all worked on it, different blocks, different quilting. And the Garden Club, there are many, many people who contributed to our garden display. And as people see all of these things, they are getting excited about them. Quilting has become a major, major pastime for many people. It is fun. It harks back to what was and to what is, and also what the future is, because if you look at the quilting magazines, you'll see people who are doing things that look like the universe and putting it into a quilt. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's passing on to another generation. And
Yeah, yeah. This is the age. Is that your boo? That's Alice's. Oh, I was going to say, because I think that was your boo.
Do I like best? I like anything that proceeds to grow and is not eaten by anything that happens to be flying past.
Oh, I see.
I'm not picky. I like all flowers as long as they're simple and bright.
And do you grow any that are, let's say, food plants or herbs or anything along that line?
I grow vegetables, I grow herbs, I grow sage, I grow parsley, I grow basil, oregano, clovage, probably some other things in there, but I'm sure looking at the garden I can't tell you off the top. Oh, dill. Massive amounts of dill.
Dill.
And nasturtiums.
Yeah, I'm fond of dill cheese and dill dips and things like that, and dill pickles.
Yeah, dill is basically indestructible.
Yeah. Now you volunteer for the library at times, for
Yes,
the Cornish Library?
Yes, I do.
And how many volunteers are there on the staff?
At the moment, I really don't know, but it seems to be quite a few. There are probably at least a dozen, if not more.
I see. Okay. Well, I'm hoping to do a little piece on that eventually, for the Historical Society and everything.
Okay, will do. I figure. I tell my husband that he's...
This fellow is in your basement every day? And
anything to drink there, sir? For $6.
He lives in my basement, and he used to snore and breathe and carry on, and he's Rip Van Winkle.
And has he's been here all 13 years? You've been coming?
This is his first year.
Oh, his first
inaugural year, yeah.
Well, I'll have to ask him what his impressions are of the fair.
Yes, after.
Yeah.
You'll have to check him out. But no, we decided that he would come down. He's gone all sorts of places in the last year.
And what do you like about this fair most of all?
The end.
The what?
The end. I'm ready for a nap by the time we're done with 3 days.
The end. Okay. And so, how is this fair coming today? Is it better than some of the others, or?
I think it's been a good Friday.
Yeah, I was afraid it was going to rain this morning.
It looked like it was going to for a minute there, but I think it'll come through.
Okay, so I'm going to switch off the camera and look at Mr. Rip and see if he is a Rip. Rest in peace.
Yeah, exactly.
Art Gardner. I'm with the Twin State Trailbusters Snowmobile Club out of Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Well, and you were explaining to me about these, what did you call these onions? And
these are bloomin' onions. We've done this is our 13th year here at the fair. We buy big Spanish onions and flour them out and batter them and sell them as a bloomin' onion.
And you've been doing this here for the past 13 years?
Yes, this is our 13th year.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've been back to the fair since it started way back, and I'm trying to get impressions of how it's changed from those early days when it was held in the town hall there.
Yeah, that was years ago.
Yeah, and you've been here for 13. What events do you like when you have a chance to see them?
I like to go up and watch the racing pigs, or go up and watch the tractor pulling on Saturday night. They have garden tractor pulling, and they do oxen, of course, and the horses on different times. So when I get away, I like to get up to the pulling ring and see what's happening up there.
Well, do you think that when it comes to these pulling and sort of tugging events, that machines have displaced the animal events, so that eventually they'll fade out, and it'll end up basically using tractors and other mechanical things to these contests?
I don't think so. I mean, a lot of the older generation and a lot of the younger kids that are on the farms around here like to come and show their animals. This is obviously a big 4-H fair, so I mean, they just added the motorized pull-in. I think this is probably the 5th year for the motorized pull-in, so it's just something to bring in a different group, a different crowd of people to enjoy the event.
And then maybe people seeing these animal events that haven't seen them before might be attracted to them as a result of coming in to see the other motorized ones.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody likes to pat a cow or see the sheep or whatever. So the animal events are great to get the kids out and get involved. That's the biggest thing in today's world with so much computerized stuff. It's good to see the kids out and doing something.
Exactly. And a lot of children have never had contact with animals or even grass, because or very limited contact, let's say. And some of the schools are trying to get children out of the schoolroom and into the countryside once in a while and everything. So this fair then is a very important one for passing on these skills and traditions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because there's also a booth up by the pulling ring that has all the old tools from the old days when there wasn't chainsaws and wasn't any of the modernized tools that are motorized. So it's good for the kids to go up and see what used to have to use for tools 50 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of things were manual. From manual typewriters to manual screwdrivers, things like that. And people have forgotten how to use some of those. They have to relearn them, and if they don't, they get injured when they try.
Yeah, and the kids of today, I mean, it's nice to get them to do some of that stuff. They're too much homebodies or inside people.
That's true. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this interview with you.
You're welcome. Enjoyed
a few cows here. And what is your name?
My name is Jasmine Tenney.
What is that?
Jasmine Tenney.
Okay, and you're from Cornish?
No, I'm from Charlestown, New Hampshire.
You're from Charlestown? And why did you enter this contest?
It's been a dream of mine since I was a little girl.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Here in Cornish, you mean?
Yep.
And did you attend fairs here as a little girl? I see. So, coming here, how many years have you come to this fair?
I'm not sure. Just a very long time.
Were you here last year?
Yes.
And did you compete last year?
Yes.
You did. And how did you do last year?
I didn't place last year, but I'm hoping this year I'll place something.
Well, I hope so. And do you have a talent that is entered into this? I mean, besides, just being there and your charm, but I mean, do you have like dancing, singing?
I'm singing.
You're singing?
Yep.
And what kind of a song are you?
I'm singing the country song Cost of Living by Ronnie Dunn.
I see. I'm not familiar with it, but maybe I will after. And when is the contest to be held? Today or tomorrow?
Yes, the contest is tonight.
Well, good luck to you, and I hope I'll see you as a winner, and then I can interview you when they give you a crown and a trophy and things like that, or?
Okay.
Okay, well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. And you're her mother?
Yes.
Well, and I could tell because she gets her beauty from you.
Well, thank you.
And who is this?
My boyfriend.
Her boyfriend?
Jasmine.
Well, you're lucky. And I see you're armed and dangerous with a sword.
It's an umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah, they're handy to have, and actually, they were called a parasol, keep the sun off your skin. And only in the U.S. they don't use them, you know. Well, you're hoping she's going to win.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And then what happens if somebody, a Hollywood scout or somebody comes by and tries to sign her up for a contract and takes her off to someplace? What are you going to do then?
I don't know.
But you're going to remain true to her.
Yeah.
I hope so. And how do you feel about your daughter being in the contest? You support her 100%?
I do support her. She's a phenomenal young lady who is actually graduating at 15 in the spring of 2012.
Really?
And she's got big plans.
And what does she have any particular field that she's going to study, let's say?
Yeah, she wants to go into criminal justice and hopefully work for NCIS.
Well, I wish her luck. Sounds like a fascinating career. And I'll have to stick around and see what happens tonight.
All right, the contest is at 8:30 tonight.
8:30 tonight. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And good luck and have a good time now.
You too.
Please.
Roger.
Roger, and you're from Franklin?
Yep.
And you say you've been coming here for a number of years to Cornish, to this fair. And how long has it been since you actually, did you grow up on a farm? That's what I'm trying to find out.
No, I didn't. My wife did.
Your wife did. And so you entered this competition and everything as a result of marriage to your wife?
Is not married to my wife, but my daughter. When my daughter was growing up, she found all my wife's old showing articles. And she wanted to know why she couldn't do it.
Well, of course.
And that was the start of it.
Well, and you're glad you started it, aren't you?
Yes.
And what does your daughter do now? Does she compete with these things, or does she do that?
Yes. She went all through the 4-H program, as did my son. And now he's farming on a Bohannon farm down in Kentucky.
Wow.
And my daughter is at a school over in Bradford, working there. But she will be here tonight, and he will be here tonight to show tomorrow.
And they'll be there tomorrow, yeah. I'll probably see them tomorrow if I don't see them now. So, you say the 4-H club and activities of that nature are important.
Absolutely.
And do you think these things are going to diminish in importance in this century, or will they continue?
Well, I don't know if they'll diminish, and the economy has taken its toll on it. It really has. I mean, they've had to suspend a lot of clubs. They suspended the club up north. And did they suspend that club, or just the one up north? Or this guy?
The extension is closed.
Yeah, they closed the club extension in the north.
Well, I've got to shut this off because my battery's going to die.
Good.
Those things of interest. You know, there's a lot of interest now in people doing sort of blacksmithing at home in a way. What they do is they try to make knives or tools or something like that, specialty. I've got a friend, and of course, the thing of it is they've got a lot of high-tech stuff, you know, that the old-timers didn't have. You know, they got special heating, and they've got modern tools to handle the stuff, and things that they don't get their hands burnt. Okay. Come on. They're starting to do it with people, with cars, with any thing that moves on the highway.
The team of Nathans comes from Bradford, New Hampshire. Their names are Buck and Bill. All the steers in this class weighed less than 2,000 pounds this morning. Young men bringing them in to weigh them.
Yeah. I guess most people don't find ox pulling contests that exciting.
Fabulous time. You guys were a great audience. Your new queen, Miss Tabitha Colby. Your new king, Mr. Nick Green. Awesome.
This is how I'm going to place the class. Both pairs looked really well today. They both very knowledgeable about their teams. Small things, a little dry manure on one, a little dandruff on the other, but both did a really good job. Just further suggestions.
What is your name, please?
Corey Stevens.
And you've lived here in Cornish all your life, or?
No, only the last 11 years.
11 years, yeah. I see. And how do you like Cornish? Obviously, you're still here.
Yeah, well, we came here to kind of get to the small town life, where a little less hectic. School's here, so we kind of were drawn to that.
I see. And have you attended a lot of these fairs ever since you arrived? Or have you attended them all?
I would say either attended them or worked them all.
And do you have a favorite event that you've seen there?
I like the horse pulling and the lumberjack events.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to see those, especially tomorrow, the lumberjack competition, and also I want to see the arm wrestling and that sort of thing. And do you have any memorable event or occurrence or experience, impression of the fair that stands out most?
Nothing. I don't think any big event. I think it's a place where people come. You see people that you probably haven't seen since last year here, and talk to them. But we usually stay pretty quiet for events. We try to keep it that way.
Well, you know, it's funny because a lot of people have told me they consider the Cornish Fair as an old home day in itself, where they can do exactly what you said: meet people and socialize, and have a great time. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Where I learned to shoot, 18 months in the desert, pouring sand out of my boots. No, I've never been convicted of a crime. I can stop this job at any time. I got steel toes, I rarely call it. $100 to be given out as we see fit here in this class. And we're going to divide that equally amongst the three teams. So when you fellas come back down, you will get 1/3 of that. And that is from the Upper Valley Tractor and Equipment Company.
Second, Jerry Gingras of Errol, New Hampshire. Congratulations, folks. Well done.